Hello and welcome to Check Out This Record podcast. My name is Frank, and as always, I'm with my good buddy Mark. This is a show where we recommend albums to each other that we haven't heard in their entirety to review, and we also talk about a variety of other awesome musical goodness as well. You can follow us on Instagram. We're very friendly. And if you have a suggestion for an album to review, let us know. And these episodes are also going to be on YouTube. Mark, how is life, my man?
Good, man. I'm drinking whiskey and listening to records, and I just want to let people know I'm the really nice one. Frank's the mean one on the internet.
It's absolutely the truth. And I'm drinking whiskey too right now.
There we go.
And I want to let people know that I will be defending everything Mark says, so I'm going to be the one replying, so you're going to get angry at Mark. But hey, Mark, you want to hear some interesting rock and roll news, my man?
Yeah, what's going on the old rock and roll newswire?
Well, let's get your reactions to some of these. And this first one I find very comical. You know the band Aerosmith, obviously, right?
Absolutely, one of my favorite bands from the ages of 9 to 11.
In that 2-year span was really happening, right?
Yeah, man, I'm pretty sure that was the window with Eat the Rich, right? And like the 9 music videos all featuring Alicia Silverstone. It probably wasn't that many. But yeah, man, that was a good period for Mark.
Well, I remember there, since you said that, there was that crying, crying, crazy, and amazing, and I always get all 3 of those songs mixed up. So there you go.
Oh, I'm sure they're all exactly the same song, just like different tempos. But yeah, no, you're good.
So the drummer, Joey Kramer, he's actually suing his bandmates for allegedly excluding him from returning to the band. So he was sidelined with a shoulder injury, and I'm just laughing hysterically about this in April of 2019, and the band is refusing him to come back.
I mean, he's got to be mid-60s at this point, right? I mean, their height was mid-80s to early 90s.
Right.
Like, and figure he was, let's call him 25 in 1990. So, I mean, like, we're talking about like a 65, 70-year-old man playing the drums. Dude, who cares? Like, how hard up for money are you that you want to get back into Aerosmith? Like, you still got to be collecting royalty checks or something. Like, what the fuck?
I mean, he's got to be. What's funny is he says it's not about the money, but he's being asked to audition to return to his own job. So there's principles behind this, Mark. Principles.
Yeah, principles. Like Steven Tyler looks like the hottest grandma on the block, and you want to go for a tour with that. Like, dude, who cares? Like, people, stop going to see Aerosmith live. Let these guys retire. They have enough money.
Well, it's funny is that there's that whole Vegas residency thing too. So maybe he's upset about not being able to do the Vegas residency.
Oh man, could you imagine the spectacle that would be an Aerosmith Vegas residency? Like, you got like that half-ton pickup from the cover of Pump. You got some fireworks. You're gonna do some cows. You got the toys from Toys in the Attic shooting across the room.
There you go.
What kind of dumb shit? And then, Frank, this is the pace of resistance, my friend.
Oh, tell me, my man.
Everything turns pink. How fucking horrid was that song? Pink. It's the sound of my suicide. Pink. It's the color of my suicide. Pink. I hate my life and I want to die. Pink. Oh, my God. I can't believe you guys are buying this record. Pink. Oh, my God. Dude, oh, fuck. That band sucks. Oh, my God.
You mean pink like the Deco umbrella, I think is one of the lines you were looking for.
You know what? Sure. I mean, like, but what? Oh my God. That would be, it's like the equivalent of like an 80s paint job on a Vegas residency. Like, just stop it. God damn it. Stop it. Well, people don't need any more money.
Well, what's funny is this the only feud? Because to my knowledge, Steven Tyler and Joe Perry couldn't even stand the sight of each other.
Who knows, man? That Joe Perry hot sauce is pretty tasty. I think that's what we should do. Here's the move, right? Every member of Aerosmith creates their own hot sauce.
Done.
And then whoever has the best hot sauce gets to tour as Aerosmith.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Wow.
I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's a buffalo chicken wing Aerosmith challenge. Steven Tyler would come up with something so terrible for this hot sauce, dude. It would be terrible.
Oh man.
Flamingo hot sauce.
But let's not forget they did perform on in Wayne Stock. Remember that?
They did perform in Wayne Stock, which is very important because Wayne's World rules.
It
Wayne's
does.
World 2, not so great, but still pretty awesome.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you on that. Oh man, what an interesting band, to be honest with you, and the egos that are in there must just be exploding at the seams, you know.
Like, why, dude? You guys are so fucking old. Like, am I the only one who just wants to retire and die already? Knock it off. You guys are so fucking rich. Just fucking, like, build another bathroom and just shut the fuck up. Like, go away. Go the fuck away. Nobody wants to hear from you anymore, Aerosmith. And if you're listening to me say this and you're like, fuck him, I want to see Aerosmith, fuck you, okay? There's no room in this world for Aerosmith anymore. They had their time. That time has gone. Let's make some hot sauce. Let's eat some chicken wings. Let's listen to good music that's not fucking Aerosmith.
That's right. I mean, put down the Armageddon soundtrack, and you know you can enjoy their music at Disney's Hollywood Studios for the Aerosmith ride, which is pretty badass. So
we didn't even talk about him fucking sexualizing his own daughter in his music videos. I mean, like, come on, dude. Like, these guys are so fucking creepy. Like, just fucking stop giving Aerosmith money, folks. Like, stop it.
There you go.
Fucking whatever show he's on this week. Like, just fucking let it go.
Let it go.
Damn it. Just let it go. You've already got the greatest hit CD in your fucking CD changer that you're not fucking looking at anyways. Leave it alone.
Are you referring to Big Ones? That one?
Maybe. Dude, they had so many they had like fucking 85 albums. Like, they could do generational fucking best ofs, and like each track would be different. Like, just fucking stop it.
Just stop it. Stop it. Well, I'm glad we got your thoughts on that one. The next little thing of note, it's on the sad side, but former Metallica and the original bass player Cliff Burton, his dad, Ray, passed away at 94, who when I was doing research, he was going to Metallica shows, and the band was in communication with him. On a more serious side, what do you think Cliff's overall impact was, just in music in general and as a bass player? I mean, he used a lot of distortion, had a lot of great solos. He seemed to be a cool guy, just a guy who passed away before his time. I mean, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I just love all those pictures of him in Misfits t-shirts.
Yeah.
Like, he had this really cool philosophy about music. He really wanted things to be grand. He really wanted to do these heavy metal opuses, which you can really tell. Those first few Metallica records with him on there, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
The bass is prevalent. It's really doing some interesting things. The song structures are far more open to just kind of this fantasy element, the Call of Cthulhu and just all these really cool things that they did where they use their music to tell a story without using the lyrics. They really got into it. They really set a lot of tone and mood. And you see after Cliff that kind of fade away into something else. And, you've got to ask yourself, is that was Cliff writing all the music, or was he just such an integral part of the songwriting process that when you take that away, it just wasn't the same. And then poor Jason Newsted, he's a fine bass player. I got nothing against him, but they underused him. There's you and I have talked about before,
totally.
Them just turning the bass all the way down on records to where it's barely audible.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, he had to live in the shadow of Cliff because Cliff was a great guy and the band couldn't get over that. He was a great songwriter. He had great musical theory and appreciation for what he was doing. I think, there's some interviews with Robert, who's playing bass for Metallica now, where he talks about his relationship with Ray and what Cliff's vision was for the band and how much he appreciated that maintaining that vision for the band was still important to them and keeping Cliff's legacy alive. It's nice to see the Metallicas embraced him and allowed him to be more present in terms of on the records. Jason was still great. He's still really cool solo stuff. He did some really cool filler parts in songs where he did really cool bass solos. But they really embraced Robert's. His last name is escaping me. But the dude's awesome. And he's got such pedigree coming from Ozzy and
Robert Trujillo. Gilo, by the way.
That you probably said it better than I would have anyway.
There you go.
The dude's awesome. Everybody loves that crab walk he does. And
Yes.
and he sounds awesome. He's just got this great thunderous sound. And he does a great job of carrying the torch that Cliff left behind.
I agree.
And just really representing those songs really well. So it's a bummer to see Ray pass away, but it's one of those things. Old dudes are gonna die.
Truth.
We can just hope that all of Aerosmith is next.
Oh, there you go. Whiskey. Raise the whiskey glass to that, right?
You guys hear my whiskey?
Well, I agree about Cliff's impact. It was definitely revolutionary. That is for sure. And lastly, in news, we have Pearl Jam will release their 11th album entitled Gigaton on March 27th of this year, 2020. Mark, I hear a potential album review here. What do you think? Do you care?
I like Gigaton. Like, is that like how fucking massive your egos are at this point? Like,
it's a gigaton,
dude. I mean, 11 albums. I would assume, is that studio albums? 11 studio albums?
Yes, that is correct.
My God.
I know.
What do you guys have left to say? I'm curious, but also, Pearl Jam boils down to about 1.5 records for me. Grunge wasn't my forte. I certainly appreciate a lot of the things that happened in grunge.
Yeah.
But Pearl Jam, I mean, like 3/4 of 10, I think is awesome. 3/4 of Verses, I think is awesome. And then spread out through the rest of their 9 albums, there's maybe a song apiece.
Right.
I just don't. Why? what do you guys have left to say? Is it going to be interesting? I will totally do this review just so that people can tell me what an asshole I am for hating Pearl Jam.
There you go.
Just like they told me I'm an asshole for hating the new Tool record, you guys can tell me I'm an asshole for hating this because it's not going to be good. And you know it, but you're still going to buy it. You're still going to buy it because it's Pearl Jam. You know what? The Suicide Machines have a new album coming out, I believe the same day. Go buy that shit instead. Suicide Machines still fucking kick ass.
There you go. Well, I think we should review it just based on your thoughts on that as well. And it is impressive, the 11th album. Now, me personally, I stopped following after Vitology. I think Vitology was actually I would say that's probably my favorite of the albums. Half of Verses, half of 10. I think 10 gets a little overrated. Half of 10, again, half of Verses, I think is good. I like the whole Vitology album. After that, I really haven't paid that much attention. So I'm willing, though, to pay this attention, see how they sound in 2020 and see if it riles us up a little bit,
I'm sure it's going to sound great. It's just going to be boring as shit.
There's that, too.
Yeah.
There's that.
I mean, I don't know. Hey, look, I would love for them to put something out that changes my fucking whole worldview. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be amazing, actually.
Hey, Pearl Jam, put out something that changes my whole worldview and makes me feel good about life again. I'm not going to do it, but go for it.
Yeah. The challenge accepted, man.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't know if they accepted it. They're probably like, this fat asshole.
I'm speaking on their behalf. I'm like, challenge accepted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the band that you introduced to me last week and at the end of last episode, this band Civilian. And the album is Should This Noose Unloosen. Now, you've heard of them before, obviously. You've listened to this record. I haven't. And this is what you threw my way. So my first question is, how did you find out about this band? I know they're originally from South Florida, and now they are in Nashville. Do you know any of the members, or how did you stumble upon them?
No, this is actually, it's really interesting. So for listeners, Frank and I are from the greater Fort Lauderdale area, just to make it easy for you to understand. So it's South Florida, above Miami, south of West Palm Beach, if you even know where that is. It's where Trump spends all your taxpayer money to go on vacation at home. Anyways.
Spring residence.
So we happen to be from the same place as these guys, but, in any major metropolitan area, there's quality chance you're not going to know these guys. So this is a band I didn't know. My wife and I went to go see a band she likes, Me Without You,
yes.
At a festival. I'm not crazy about Me Without You. I'll sit through a concert because I absolutely adore my wife. but it's not my music, and that's okay. So Civilian was opening, and I got to tell you, both of us were absolutely blown away. You know, I believe they're self-described as an indie rock band. I think that fits. Really great lyricism, really great musicality. I really love the way this band can sway and groove. They can get really loud and intense when they need to, and they can be really quiet and still when they want to. So this was one of those bands that, we saw them. They were actually working on the next record when we saw them. So this is what they had available for us. Should This Noose Unloosen. I really love how moody and intense this record is, and in particular, in a pair of headphones.
There you go.
So, okay. Folks at home, you sometimes you put a record on and you listen to it in a big room. Sometimes you're putting a record on in your car, or, you're probably listening to an MP3 or a CD in your car, whatever, or you're in your office, and maybe you can put some music on some speakers. My favorite way to listen to this is in a pair of headphones, in as quiet and still a room as you can. Typically, in my case, there's a cat or two sitting on my chest when I'm listening to it. But just a really intense, really nice headphone experience for this record. I love the tone and depth of it, and I hope it's something that really kind of excited you, Frank, because I know we've been playing a little bit in the realm of some indie rock, some alt rock, and seeing what each other dig. And I was really hoping this was something you'd get into. So just kind of overall, and we'll jump into the track by track in a minute. Yeah. What was your kind of initial reaction to this?
Sure. The first thing that struck me about this band was the singer, Ryan Alexander. He sounds a little bit like Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie. Mark, do you listen to them that much? And if you do you find any similarities with their vocal tone?
I got to be honest with you. I think your wife recommended I listen to them.
Yes.
And I remember not really being into it.
Yeah.
But that was probably a few years before Civilian even hit my radar.
Okay.
So, you could recommend a Death Cab for Cutie record for me right now, and I wouldn't know a single song off of it.
Okay. If you do happen to come across them, I'm not telling you to go out and listen to them by any means, but there is some similar tones, I think, on this record in particular. Now, I did listen to a couple of tracks from the next record, and it definitely matures and gets, as we get older, definitely the voices change. So maybe not so much, but that's the first thing that struck me about this record. Now, I'm going to be honest here, and at first it didn't hit me, and although it should have with a band name like Civilian, but by the time I got to the third track, and this is not the track-by-track analysis, but Bottom Dollar, I said, uh-oh. And the uh-oh is in reference to some of my biggest pet peeves in life, and I'm going to be honest here for a minute. And I said, okay, this is going to be another postmodernist hipster telling me about the injustices of the world and how I need to do something about it. Now, in my opinion, that segments people ever more, as music's supposed to be something that's more universal. And just for the record, I would have the same sour taste for those that are the polar opposite. But I sat back and I said, no, Frank. I said, halting the ability to listen to a good rock record and learn something doesn't help, and might as well be as detrimental as the types of individuals I've mentioned there with the postmodern types. So I said, okay, clean slate this. But I did some research. I found an article, this dates back to October 2016, where Alexander says that he writes music for the everyman in a time when other artists cater to the individual. And I thought, okay, that was thoughtful. I liked it. Then he proceeds to say down in this, which I really liked, he said, your political affiliation has very little to do with what your intent for your neighbor can be. Alexander notes, it's easier than ever to not actually do anything because people just want to know whether you're voting at the time, of course, for Trump or Hillary. I'm not interested in political affiliation. I'm interested in ideas, Alexander says. So after reading this, I said, listen, I respect this passion and the effort to that craft and to these songs. So this is a blank canvas for me. And I started viewing this as a life record. So at the first listen as a whole, I quickly thought of the Casket Laundry album, which, I didn't really care for that much and really hoped that this didn't leave me with that same feelings. But there's a lot of musical variants there, tons of depth lyrically, and it separates itself from the aforementioned album. So that vibe quickly died down. So I come to, of course, a conclusion that it could be very difficult with music too, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I just wanted to put that out there. There was a preconceived notion. I wiped it clean, blank slate, and to me, this was a life album. So I wanted to put that out there, and your thoughts are welcomed.
No, I think you make an interesting points about where you started with from this, right? Because the name right off the bat, Civilian, sounds like we're making some sort of political statement, right?
Right.
This is, whether it's we don't believe in the, American industrial war complex, or whether it's I'm a pacifist, or whether it's whatever it is.
Yeah.
Whereas I think they use this name very much from a humanistic point of view, and,
Yes.
and the idea that Civilian really just kind of means one of us. This record, for me, is really about that. It's about being a human, and really the isolation of human existence.
Right.
Is what I really dig about this record. This, for those of you like me who are chronically depressed, this album really speaks to that isolation of depression. So do you want to get started with Everybody's Hungry? You want me to jump in? What would you like to do?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Before we get into that too, and,
Sure.
I was going to say how difficult, it could be with music. I just wanted to say, this type of music, this really rich, full sound of indie, I do like a lot. I think all the years of listening to punk music, though, has had me to where I like guitar-driven music to be a certain way in structure, and then on the acoustic side, the folk type music. When I think of acoustic music, that's the type I think about. So that kind of is what is going through my head, and I have to sort things out. So sometimes these indie rock albums that are maybe way more layered than that, they take a little bit while for me to digest. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I think that's fair. Yeah, and hey, listeners at home, you guys are coming with your preconceived notion as to what records should be sounding like, just as Frank comes with a notion of what he thinks records should sound like, and I come with a notion of what I think these records should sound like. And it's really interesting, and it's part of the fun thing about doing this is that it's going to break up. Did you guys hear Frank take that giant sip of whiskey? I could totally hear it. But it's fun getting into these different styles, right? Indie, for a very long time, has kind of skirted the threshold of punk rock because it fit in enough, and it gave bands an outlet. And, punk is vague enough that you can really get quite expressive and quite out there and really be doing something more indie than necessarily your traditional punk rock of, having a political message or just being this straightforward, really fast tempo. So I think you make an excellent point, Frank. This is why we invite you guys to play along at home. We hope you get a chance to listen to these records wherever you can find them legally, yes. Or not, whatever. I'm not your dad, unless you're out there, son. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, why don't you get us started, buddy?
All right, so let's do some track-by-track analysis here. Everyone's Hungry is the first song. I sensed like a little bit of an 80s influence here with the opening guitar. Asking me what song then I would reference that to, I don't know, but for some reason, just the effects that they're doing and everything, it just struck me as something that you might hear from the 80s. But I like the use of lyrics, and the lyrics in particularly that are not frequently heard in songs. For example, God blessed with large breasts, straight teeth, and light skin. Every demographic wants what you have. I thought it was a very good opening track. It was engaging, and lyrically it sets the tone for what is to come. So I thought this was a good song. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I love, people at home hear me beat this to death, setting the tone for a record. And this track opens with this really cool dual bass kick, and then a little hi-hat snare drum and some guitar strumming. And it really opens up the airy nature of this record. You really feel like you're sitting in a big room listening to this band, and you can hear it echoing, and you can hear it being very precise when it wants to be. And it really sets that up, goes into that great mid-tempo groove, really thick bass lines. The bass in this whole album is it's got some really great lines, but it's really used to accent and give depth to everything. And this song is great. I love in this one, as I mentioned, I really feel like this whole record's strongly about isolationism. With all this noise, it's hard to hear my heart.
Yeah, I like
that kind of wonderful lyric, and it paired especially with the lyric Frank read you guys. Of how we're separating ourselves, how we're using this sound to isolate ourselves, and to cut ourselves off from the rest of the world, and what it means that this woman is so perfectly structured that it creates a noise and a distance between us, and what that means to live within that. And I think it really sets that tone for the whole record really well. I love this song. I think it's some of the best stuff on this record.
Yeah.
And there's some more really great stuff. And hey, folks, I recommended this record. You're going to hear me say, like, I don't like that song. I really wish I would have left it off. That's coming up later. But this one I really adored. I love his use of lyrics.
Yeah.
When he wants to, his lyrical ability is really, really crisp, really clean, great storytelling. And this is a great example of it. Track 2 is Conditions.
Yes.
Which really dives deeper into that isolation, right? And how we place limits on relationships that we don't necessarily share, how we witness other people and their actions and how it makes us feel, and then we keep it to ourselves, isolating ourselves further, excuse me. I love the line, my touch is always free, my love has got conditions. So that separation again, my body and my physical being doesn't necessarily have to do with my emotions. I can separate those things, and really just building on that rich sonic tone that the first track set. What did you think, Frank?
Yeah, so musically, I think the flow it's done well here between Everyone's Hungry and this track. In fact, live, I could see that blending in very, very well. The guitars play nicely off of each other. I think the chorus is a little weaker than the opening track. So I would say the opening track is superior, but overall not bad. I think it continues the exploration of that isolation, and it's left to interpretation for everyone who's felt isolation and kind of what they want to make of it. So, again, Everyone's Hungry, I think, is superior, but this one's a nice complement to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Bottom Dollar, I mean, this was my least favorite thus far. I think the change in tempo for the chorus, it lost me. When they were jamming and the solo took place, that also lost me. I think 3 songs back to back to back with an even tempo is challenging, because now musically, I'm not talking about the content though, but musically I could see that this is where someone could get disinterested in this record. So this particular song on the album didn't do it for me. That was my initial thoughts. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, this is definitely one of the 2 tracks on this record that I could do without.
Okay.
It kind of vaguely starts a little bit about maybe getting a record contract and the anxieties behind that, and then it kind of shifts into this allegory for political statements about banks and laws and how they're things, and then it kind of turns into a little bit about back to kind of relationships and making it more personal. And I just kind of felt for his songwriting ability and his ability to structure songs, it just felt a little weak, and it just didn't really do much for me.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a little bit of a forced attempt to sound kind of radical and make more of one of the more political statements on the record.
Yeah. Agree.
Musically, I thought it was fine. I think if this came up on a shuffle, musically you wouldn't be bored. It just wouldn't really do anything unless you're really paying attention to those lyrics, which for me, I think if they work in segments, but as a whole, it just doesn't quite gel together.
Yeah.
That was kind of, and I think you and I both agree, Bottom Dollar is probably one of the lesser than tracks on the record.
I agree. Yep. So we're on the same page with that one.
Yeah. Track 4, Don't Lose Heart. We start with this really cool ethereal guitar hum, and it really sets that big open room, that big spacey feel back up. The drums build really nice into this kind of mid-tempo groove that I really dug. Smart lyrics, nothing trying to be more than what they are on the surface, just really kind of pretty words that fit together. He wasn't trying to overly say anything in this, which I feel like when you contrast this to Bottom Dollar, where he's like, you feel like he's trying to make a statement. This is just kind of a nice flowy song that I really liked. I do like the way it builds to a Jesus Christ whiskey crescendo with the vocal performances. Everybody kind of repeating the chorus just slightly off of each other. They're not harmonizing, but they're all doing the same, building this big vocal crescendo, and then it comes to a real sudden halt, and you just get this beautiful singing with a little bit of the electric guitar behind it, and the harmonies kind of build up after that. Plus, I love the line, when you find that love isn't what you thought, don't lose hope and don't lose heart.
Yeah.
I think that's line. Really, back to what this album's about, in that, love is something you're going to strive for and something you're going to reach for, but it's not always going to be the expectation you had for it, and you're going to have to compromise with it, and you're going to have to deal with the fact that if love is what you want, you're going to have to trade something for it and accept love for what it is. I really just appreciate the thoughtfulness of this. And I think for being about a third of the way through this record, it's a nice glimmer of hope in kind of what was a little bit of a darker beginning to a record, very moody, dark. I like that it gave it a little bit of hope, a little bit of, uplifting potential.
Yeah, I immediately liked the vibe of the song. To me, I thought this was like the first standout track on the record. The verse is a nice medley, and lyrically, like verses like where it says holding your neck while the fuzz and the feds are detaining your grandson for drugs. I mean, that's some awesome imagery there. I absolutely I love this track, and I agree with what you said.
Very cool, man.
Yeah. James Kent. So,
son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch. That's right. The heaviness of this song didn't match the music. And at first I was walking around like I kind of had an issue with that. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, wait a minute, that's cool. I think if done properly, like a heavy burdened song like this with a lighter, maybe more vibrant musical background can really, really be satisfying. And that's what I got. Now, is James Kent, the author of the song, or is it really, like someone he knew and this is kind of how the story goes? Well, that is left up to interpretation. But again, I really liked, because this is a heavy song. It's an intense song if you really break it down. And again, the vibrantness of the music, to me, I just thought that was a great pairing. What about you?
Yeah, I think this is a great example of how good he is with lyrics and telling stories. From the opening line, James Kent, you son of a bitch, into just kind of like what it feels like to sit in a funeral and look at people and, come up with your own conclusions as to what they think that person did to get there, or what they think is happening to that person, or, like that experience of sitting in a really personal setting, like a funeral home during a funeral. I really thought he did a great job of emoting that experience really appropriately. I think you're right. It could be, you could be looking at a much heavier, darker song. But I like the way it felt really honest.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that song. I'm going to jump into what I Get What I Want.
Yes.
This is, again, this was my recommendation for Frank. I really like this record. I could have done without the first 2.5 minutes of the song.
Yeah.
Really lyrically, nothing special happens in that time. Musically, we're kind of just rehashing a little bit of what we've done. But that said, at about 2.5 minutes, we get this kind of swirling guitar and chorus of I get what I want from you.
Yeah.
That really builds kind of that the anger of isolationism, that very personal, like you need to be aggressive and take what you want, but distancing yourself, keeping people in arm's length. And they really did a great job of building that. I really like the cool solo that comes after it. It does this great job of just constantly feeling like you're swirling, right? Like we're in this room with them. It's very open and spacious. And this song, especially that chorus, really just kind of fills with water, and you feel the water come over your head and crash down on you. And just kind of you take a few breaths and the water is cleared and you're into the next track. I really like the way they did this. The only issue I have with the song is the first 2.5 minutes. Just they set it up, but they don't really do it any justice. I felt like you could have jumped into this with a 15 or 20 second intro and gone out of it with this last bit, and it would have been a great song.
Yeah, almost similar notes there. I think there's a nice build-up. The chorus is nice, layered melody with good guitar tones. And my favorite part is that harmony where they're repeating, "I get what I want, and I get what I want from you." I heard a little bit of Further Seems Forever and the band Pedro the Lion here. Again, I could have done without the long kind of intro and build-up. So very similar on the thoughts that we had for this song. Okay, Teach That Girl to Dance is the next track. This to me is the low point on the album, and for me it's a bummer.
Really?
Yeah, to be honest. Why? Because I feel the lyrics are good. Actually, it paints a really interesting story. There's a lot of imagery. It tells us a story, but man, the music just it didn't connect with me. The opening riff doesn't catch me. I think the backing vocals are not well placed. And I know it's not about kids actually dancing, but for such a mature sounding record, I think this regresses it on the musical side. And that's just my thoughts. What about you?
So anybody who knows me knows that I absolutely adore cemeteries.
Yes.
I've spent many an hour just walking through cemeteries looking at headstones.
Yes.
And doing exactly what he suggests in this, making up stories about who these people are and what their lives were like. And so for me, this song is, as much as it's about teaching the girl to dance, it's about teaching you to use your imagination and embracing it and using it as a way to free yourself from the rest of this world. I liked that the song was kind of upbeat and fun, that we were using it as an excuse to try to create not necessarily a dance song, but a song that you could dance to and kind of shake your butt with a little bit and have fun with it. I will admit the guitar solo is a little clunky for me. It's definitely one of the low points for it. But for me, this is one of the highlights of the album, just because they do such a great job with the lyrics. And my computer's dying because I don't have it plugged in. And that was probably the tone you guys heard, or I heard it, and it distracted me completely from what I was talking about. So Frank's going to tell you about Things Change.
I am.
Plug my computer in while he does that.
There you go. And again, just on Teach That Girl to Dance, it was a little bit, again, of a bummer for me, because I really like the lyrics, and it does paint a story. It's just musically, it didn't match up. I wasn't vibing it at all. So Things Change. The acoustic intro is nice, and I really like the build-up. They do a very, very good job here with the build-up and the anticipation of that. We got loud blaring guitars, nice riffs, and of course the lyrics, nice vocal melody, and I think the varied structure really makes this song stand out. You get a lot in here at 4 minutes and 10 seconds that this song lasts, and coming from the low point in the album, which was Teach That Girl to Dance. In my opinion, I was really liking Things Change. And Mark, can you hear me?
I can certainly hear you.
All right, man. What'd you think of Things Change?
I like it. I like the tone of it. Lyrically, I agree with you. He does, more of that really nice imagery. This to me did feel a little bit like a filler track, but in a positive way, just kind of bridging the gap between songs. With that said, track 9, Market Mistress.
Yes.
This was the low point for me.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it musically, but lyrically, I thought it was lacking. Kind of felt like this is where he was trying to be the most political, and it didn't necessarily work for me.
Right.
But that's just, sometimes certain songs hit you certain ways, and this for me is one of the lower points.
Yeah, I agree. I had this marked down as another one of the lower points on the albums. I mean, there are some positives here. It gives you a nice melodic feeling, and even though this record is not emo in the traditional sense, I could sense the emotion here, as I can with the next track, which I'll highlight. It kind of had a Weezer Pinkerton feeling for me, but yeah, definitely on one of the lower sides of the tier for this album. Now we get to my absolute favorite song on this record, and it's Heaven. And this is the high point for me and this entire record. In fact, it went on my playlist of all-time favorite songs, and I need to let people know what that playlist is so they could play along at home. But man, this is great. You got great harmonies, lyrics, guitar tones. I feel like this could be the most real song on the album. And it's because I believe it. Like, I believe what this person was going through. Now, not to be confused with, the believing of the passion on the other songs, but with Heaven, I just believe that this person, again, went through this scenario. And if he didn't, then he has me fooled, and he's just a fantastic storyteller. So you get these lyrics. Like, I think I will be fine if you left me, if we end up divorcing. I thought you'd impress me I thought you'd be impressed. I'm sorry if you met me, if only you gotten to know me, as you would have passed me and not seen me. Graveyards are filled with disposable men laying beside all the others that warned them. This is towards the end of the song. Then I opened up my mouth and Lazarus came marching out upon the tongue of a once dead man that now is damned to love again. I mean, what a set of lyrics. A story, in my opinion, of love ending and possibly given the chance to love again. This is something where I'm like, I wish I wrote this song. So, Mark, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I love this track. I agree with you. Great use of lyrics. I love the electric guitar, light strumming, almost guitar picking in the intro, and the vocals. Really great done. But again, the lyrics on this are really phenomenal. You guys should do them. They're really great stuff. I love the way he embraces the words, though. In his approach to singing. This was a song that for my wife and I, when we'd listen to this CD in her car because it got stuck in her CD player for a long time. Hearing him say, what if we got divorced, was a jarring thing for us. And it was one of those things that we had to be able to get past that lyric to see how beautiful the rest of the song was, and to see the thoughtfulness of understanding that things end and have a season, and that you can come back from those things. Just really, really great stuff there. Really, I really enjoy the way he uses his lyrics in this. And the musicianship on the band in this is still really fantastic. They really play into the songwriting. It almost feels a little more like you're listening to an opera or a musical,
right?
With the storytelling and the band just filling in where it needs to be, crescendoing where it needs to be, lulling where it needs to be. Just really, really well done.
Yeah.
So track 11.
Yep.
Faulty Manufacturing. This is definitely one of the highlights of the album for me.
Mm-hmm.
More of that electric guitar, simple picking with the vocal coming in behind it in almost kind of a haunting way, with some really well crafted, darker lyrics. And then, the earnest and honesty of this record. I forgot I'm a man, not an island, right? So we're right back into feeling alone and acknowledging that you're not alone, and that you're part of something bigger, and that the world is a bigger place, and you're not just an island. I really like the way he dives into that and discusses and makes us think about how do we deal with that. Really lyrically, just really a great job for me in expressing those kinds of things. So
yeah. No,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah. No, absolutely. And, this was one where I kind of, it blended into my list of the songs that just didn't do it for me. And maybe I need to go back and revisit it, but it just sounded too much like the same formula of what they established. And maybe, maybe it was set for failure in my mind because it came after Heaven, right? So if I loved the song that much, which was Heaven, how is anything after that going to eclipse that? So maybe that is that. That's the reason why we're getting that. However, it kind of fell into that category for me.
See, that's kind of funny because the title track, Should This Noose Unloosen, comes after this. And for me, that's one of the low points of the record.
That's interesting. Okay.
It didn't do that much for me. Whereas this one, I love that line, "Did God assemble me with weak parts?"
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to assign blame for ourselves, and we're looking for other ways to do it, and trying to cope with that. And I appreciate the way he did it in this song. Musically, I like the way it rises and falls, as a lot of this album does. It's not, each song is certainly not its own opus. It's definitely a very similar song structure, more or less throughout, but it's different, as Frank and I talked about in the intro, than your standard, verse, chorus, bridge, repeat. It does a little more, but it definitely falls into the pattern they've set up and the tone they've set up for this record. I really enjoyed it. But with that said, Should This Noose Unloosen, to me, it felt a lot like really atmospheric poetry, which I'm not opposed to. But I wish for the end of the album, they would have done something a little more grand. Right. And that's kind of where it felt flat to me. I thought the guitar parts were pretty, and they were definitely well played. One of the lines I did like was about the wolves and sheep, and I thought it was a little bit maybe of a bit of a Christian commentary about sheeps and how they're viewed and what it means to be a wolf, within that community. But that could just be me reading into it and assigning what I assume value to things that he wrote. I don't know that he was trying to make a statement about Christianity in this. I can certainly tell you guys how I feel about it, but that's not the point of this. And then I feel like the album kind of slowly fades to black, which is fine. But I would have liked a bigger ending to this. I would have liked a little more closure for myself.
Yeah. So, as much as I struggled with this album initially, it definitely grew on me. There's a lot of layers to this. I mean, it's a common thing to say with these lyrically deep albums, but it's the truth. I don't know how else to say it. There could be a lot of those themes you mentioned, and whatever your thoughts are on things like Christianity or any religion, the others should be fair game too. In my personal opinion, if they're going to be criticized, but whether you are for or against them, you should be questioning, because there's no answers that I think any of us have, regardless of views. So the questioning should always be there. And if that is what the intent is on some of this, the questioning of things, I appreciate that. And the quality of the lyrics, I think are compliments of that. So I really liked it. There are some things, I think more musically, things fell flat for me as opposed to lyrically. I think, again, the lyrics, they were well thought out. I think he took his time to go ahead and do that, and the certain placements of them as well. I think that's hard to do for anyone who's tried to write songs before. So, I mean, the lyrics, there's the musical variants, the song Heaven itself, that really had it for me. Now, if I had to rate this, it's kind of like a 6 or a 7, maybe more on the 7. Would I buy it? I wouldn't shy away from it, but here you go, though. You have to keep in mind now at kind of our ages, when you think of buying a record, you put forth the investment, right? So you do have to spend money then for that. And it also has to get replay value. So would that get replay value? I'm not quite sure. It's not a bad record by any means, but I would say like somewhere on a 7 is fair for me. Your thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, see, this record for me gets a good amount of play because, like I said, this for me is a I'm depressed and I need to listen to it. So this comes up a bit for me. I would definitely try to purchase this record if I could find it in the store. Definitely a smaller indie release. I'm not sure that they ever did vinyl pressings of it, although they may have. It may have been like you can get it at a show situation, or we could Google it. It may be there. But this is one that I think I would pick up. I love the atmosphere of this record. I think it sounds really great. Like I said, in a pair of headphones, I'd love to hear it on a really nice stereo.
Yeah.
Because I really feel like the depth of it, the production of this record is really crisp, really clean. There's great tone to it. So I think it rates a little higher for me. I think it's probably an 8 or 8.5 in that range.
Okay.
I really like it. Again, his lyrics in this sell 90% of the record. And again, for me, I think Faulty Manufacturing into Should This Noose Unloosen kind of, for me, instead of being like a grand moment up and finish, was just kind of a fade into black, which has its place. This certainly gets enough listens out of me. I would definitely pick up this record for sure. And I'm happy that you kind of picked up on what I wanted you to pick up a little bit, but it's interesting that, you and I had some favorites and some least favorites that were contradictory. So we've both found things we really like and disliked about this record, but in different places. Which, hey, music's subjective, man. We're going to find that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's really hard sometimes to sit and be like, okay, well, again, why does this make me feel this way? And why does this make me feel that way? And it's interesting to hear our comparisons and, where we kind of find the differences. And then, of course, meeting in the middle, which is the coolest thing about this. So, again, an enjoyable record and heaven, I'll listen to it at least once a day.
Very cool, man. I'm happy you found a track you really dig out of it, man. I think this record's definitely, I'm interested to see, whether or not you and I are doing this podcast in 5 years or not, if we go back to it, will this record kind of hold up the way we wanted to?
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to see. Did you have a chance, just before we move on from this, I know you mentioned you listened to a few things. You listened to Would You Believe What Privilege Costs?
Yeah, a couple tracks from there.
My favorite track on that's the opening track, Skulls.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really nice stuff in there. I agree with you. It matures really nicely. His singing matures. The songwriting, the musicality of it definitely grows. Would you recommend people take a poke at that as well?
Yeah, Caroline and Michael, I thought were really good tracks to me as well. It shows a progression, both musically and I think even furthers that lyrically, where it's just kind of digging further and kind of questioning kind of some things that Ryan has some questions about. And I think that's really, really cool. Skulls is another great track. I would definitely recommend people to check that out. I hope we even get more from them too. I was seeing on their because this is from 2016, so it's 2020 now. So I hope we get something soon. I did see on their website that if you go to their kind of the little band member bio, there's only 2 members. So Ryan and then the other member, I forgot his name offhand, but I hope they get the other 2 members so they can form a full band and crank out some more stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm certainly interested to see what else they come up with. I'd definitely be interested in hearing some solo stuff from them. When they were releasing that last record, there was a lot of footage of him playing songs acoustically and working through them, which was really cool. I always love when bands do that because I like kind of hearing what that process is about, so that when I come on this podcast and I make broad assumptions about stuff, you guys don't just think I'm an asshole. I mean, I am, but you shouldn't just assume it. Okay, I've earned it.
There you go. One day we'll talk about our band days, and then people could really, really have their opinion as to which one of us is the asshole.
Sure.
Oh man. But remember, Mark is the asshole and I'm the one defending him when you contact us online. Oh man. Well, this was definitely interesting. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, did anybody reply with better lyrics or worse lyrics than Fleetwood Mac, or your choice was, oh my God, I feel like such a nerd right now.
Nerd away, man. Nerd away.
And I had mentioned that the one of the stupidest lyrics of all time was sounds like sings a song that sounds like she's singing the Fleetwood Mac lyric. And I was wondering if anybody did we get in contact? Did anybody reach out and tell us we were wrong?
Yeah, no, not yet. So I think people need to. So if you guys have whatever you feel the worst lyric is in the world, just listen to any Bon Jovi or Ed Sheeran song and you'll find those really bad lyrics. Send them our way, man. Let's talk about them.
Yeah. We're trying to defend that horseshit. I'm open to you trying to say no, that's a really good lyric, and then back that horse shit up. Go for it. I dare you. It's like President Trump trying to tell me we need a space force. Come on. You're full of shit.
Well, Bon Jovi's a tough one to defend on the lyric side because
he sure is.
Well, I'm really excited about what our next episode is about, Mark. So let's give the listeners a little bit of a taste of that. So we're going to take two important bands from our teenage years, obviously, which was the 90s, and they're responsible really for bringing punk rock to the mainstream. I'm talking about Green Day and The Offspring. Now, both of these bands got huge around the same time. So, I remember there's magazine covers and kids would always kind of pit them against each other. Who was better? Well, we're going to do the same. Now, before we get into the main event, which people right away are going to be like, oh, it's Dookie versus Smash, we have to see how they ended up there. And the undercard of that is going to be Kerplunk versus Ignition. Now, Mark, how excited are you for this?
I'm actually really excited. I love this idea. So, of course, we're talking about The Offspring and Green Day.
Yep.
We're talking about two bands that were seminal in the what is commonly referred to as the second wave of punk. And really two probably of the most commercially successful punk bands of our time, maybe even ever. Certainly Green Day has eclipsed them in the long run, has eclipsed Offspring in the long run. But certainly when you talk about Dookie and Smash, and you talk about Kerplunk and Ignition, you're seeing the band step up from one realm to another. So I like that we're gonna do the early albums and then the big smash hits, excuse the pun, afterwards. But I think it's going to be important, right? So if you're listening along at home, go back, listen to those early records. We're going to touch a little bit on the Offspring self-titled record. We'll touch very briefly on Smoothed Out, Slappy Hours. What's that?
1039.
1039 Smoothed Out, Slappy Hours. Thank you. We'll discuss those briefly, but really, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes. More meat than potatoes for me, of Kerplunk and Ignition, two really great records. This should be a lot of fun to see where we land on these. I'm really excited. We'll do Dookie and a Smash, and then who knows, maybe we'll just be total assholes, and in a few weeks we'll do whatever last records they put out, which were probably both horseshit, garbage fucking records. And both of those bands, you guys have heard me say this about Aerosmith, they have enough money, stop buying their shit.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to dissect Kerplunk and Ignition, really peel back the layers and see what's going on and really how they gave way to Dookie and Smash. So we're going to touch on a lot of things. As Mark said, we'll talk about The Offspring self-titled. We'll talk about 1039 Smoothed Out, Slappy Hours, kind of how they are similar, how the bands are different. And there are musically a lot of differences there. So I am amped for that. And, I think that at the end we'll reflect on Kerplunk and Ignition as we will with Dookie and Smash and say which one, as of today, will we prefer. And I'm excited about that. Right, Mark?
Yeah, definitely. I really love this idea. We're calling this, at the Check Out This Record home base, we're calling this the Verse series. You guys will see these about once a month. If there are two records that you feel kind of match up for this, two records that really had important moments in history that kind of align or maybe conflict, let us know what you think. We'd be happy to look at some of those, maybe make an episode out of them. Remember, when you're finding us wherever you love to listen to podcasts, or as Frank likes to point out, and he's spending a lot of time on it, YouTube.
Yes.
If you're listening to us on YouTube, comment on records you want us to listen to. Comment on bands you want us to check out. We'll listen to you. As much as this is about us telling you what we think, we want to know what you guys think. So feel free to share. Feel free to comment. Feel free to tell me what an asshole I am, because I am. And Frank's gonna be really sweet in defending me. But at the end of the day, I am an asshole, and I'm not afraid of that. So share with us, talk with us, join in on the conversation. We're really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Reach out to us. Again, you can listen to this wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, Instagram, YouTube. You can tell Mark what an asshole he is, but just so everyone knows, because of him being an asshole is why I love him. So there you go.
Yeah.
So until then, thanks for joining, everyone. Again, this has been the Check Out This Record podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will talk soon.
Bye, guys.